Okay, I see people getting on. Hello, everyone. If you have come for this wonderful visiting vignette, you are in the right place. I have a wonderful guest today, Joe Parisi, and we'll get started in just a minute. I'm watching you guys come on. Well, before we get started, everyone is in listen-only mode. If you have questions for Joe or for any of us during this visiting vignette, this is a 25-minute visiting vignette. You can type them into, you should see a box called Q&A, and please type them right in there, and we will try to get to your questions. So I'm going to stop sharing the title screen, and then Joe and I are going to have a conversation. Joe, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
And we are going to talk today about heart attack. And so I wondered if you would talk to us, just tell us briefly about your story.
Well, back in 2000, around there somewhere, I used to be a real heavy 336-pound guy. And I had trouble walking and without getting out of breath and all that other fun stuff. So I went to a doctor and I found out I had a couple of arteries clogged. So I had stents put in, and that worked for a while. And I, took care of myself, ate right, tried to do the best I could to lose weight. And I was doing good for, say about maybe 10 years and maybe a little longer. And then all of a sudden I got, my legs started to swell up and all these other things were happening to me. And I come to find out that I was started, getting into heart failure. And I found out that I needed more stents. And then they found out that the stents I had were no good. They all clogged up. And basically I just had like one good artery running. And I was fitted with a defibrillator, which kind of saved my life a whole bunch of times. And then it just got to the point where all the things wrong with my heart, they basically told me that, can we fix it? Maybe. Would it help you? No. So I had a transplant. They put me on the list for a transplant. And as of today, today's my anniversary date. It's 3 years and 7 months since I had my heart transplant.
Wow.
And so far, knock on wood, I'm still here. Yeah.
Well, we are so grateful for that, for sure. When you think back, that's an incredible journey, and it is so good to try to get healthy and do the right things, and yet sometimes we still can get a diagnosis we really would rather not have. Can you tell us a little bit about what you wish you had known before you were diagnosed with heart failure?
Well, I wish I would have known that, basically getting out of breath and being tired all the time. I thought that was basically from being heavy. And also, I found out later that, stomach issues, indigestion, stuff like that. Who knew that, that was the whole part of it. I wish I would have recognized that sooner, went to a doctor sooner. And then the other thing too is, yes, I, did the right things, but I could have did more. I didn't, I try to keep away from salt and watch what I eat. Yes, I was losing weight, but I didn't do like I am now. Now I keep away from anything salty. I watch everything I eat. I don't eat a lot. I exercise crazily. I'm like, since my 3 years, I think I logged about 8,000 miles riding a bicycle, not counting walking. I'm just constantly moving.
Wow.
And that's basically it.
Yeah, I think that is not uncommon. When I talk to people with different types of heart disease, a lot of them feel like either, well, this is just what happens when you get older, or this is just what happens if I'm not the right weight. And they take all these symptoms for granted and don't realize they're part of something. And so it's really important, I would say. How do you feel people could learn more about the symptoms and about knowing whether whether or not they might have heart failure, knowing to go to the doctor and ask questions.
Yeah, well, the big no, now we got everything's on the internet. You can look up all these things, but best thing is just get to a doctor and find out what's happening. Because when my journey started, I had a brother that passed away from leukemia, and all the things he was telling me that was wrong with him, I started to feel. So I went to a doctor, my regular, practitioner, and I went to them, and they looked at me and they go, "You're in heart failure." I says, "You sure?" I says, "Well, I'm my brother just," but he goes, "No, what's happening to you? You're fine. We'll test you," which they did, and they go, "You don't have leukemia. You got heart failure. You better go see a cardiologist right away," which I did, and that started the whole journey into a transplant.
Well, before you got to the transplant, you said you had an ICD
Yeah.
implanted. Tell us a little bit about what kind of things you took into consideration when you were deciding on treatment options.
Well, when I had the ICD, which I was kind of reluctant at first because they gave me this thing to wear. It's called the life vest.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wear this dumpy thing for, I kind of looked funny wearing it, and I had people, it was under my shirt, and when I went to work, I had people like, what do you got, a space suit underneath there? And I said, "No, it's keep me alive, shut up," But thankfully that saved, one morning I was making breakfast, and the next thing I find myself on the floor, and my dog's sitting on top of me, and I'm like, "What just happened?" And I says, "Oh, the life vest went off." I said, "Oh, okay." So, next thing I know, my wife's calling, paramedics took me to the hospital, and that was it. And it's just thank God they put me, they gave me a ICD, because that used to go off. I had to go off a lot of times. And the thing which I know I shouldn't have done, I used to drive while wearing it, and I had to go to work. I had to make money. So, my whole route to going to work was basically because I knew I had like 2 seconds when I knew it was kind of going to happen to me. So I basically planned, where can I pull over so I won't hurt others or hurt myself? And that, it was just crazy. But that's
Well,
the scary part.
yeah, and so the ICD, for people watching who may not know, is something that, gives your heart a shock. So you can, when you get out of rhythm or your heart stops in the right rhythm, then you can get a shock and your heart will start in the right rhythm again. And so, an ICD is definitely one of the devices that can be used for patients. Again, you said it doesn't cure it, but it does help you stay in the right rhythm. So what were you also put on, and you don't have to tell the type of medication, but were you also put on medications as well? And how did you manage your medications?
Yeah, they put me on, oh man, I know it starts with an A. I can't,
You don't have to say the name. We
I don't
avoid
remember
that
what it
anyway.
was,
Yeah.
but I was on high dosages of that to keep because basically they told me my heart used to flutter instead
Okay.
instead of beating. It used to beat, then it would get into a flutter, and that's when it would shock me back into normal rhythm again. So I took all kinds of drugs, and I was on, I can't remember how many blood pressure medicines, blood thinners. It was so many things I used to take to help me.
Yeah. And what kind of advice would you give around managing medication for someone starting out this journey? It can be really overwhelming. All of a sudden, you're on a bunch of different medications. So what kinds of things helped you manage that?
Well, I'm pretty good when it comes to medication. I had the little separate, well, now I got a bigger one. I used to keep my pills separated and what I needed to take and what times I used to take them. And I did what they told me to do. They said, take it this time, I took it that time. And I always made sure I took them and, did what I had to do because I didn't want to get shocked. It was no one time I got shocked without passing out first. Don't recommend it.
I bet.
It's not one of the things to put on your list that, yeah, this is fun. No.
Yeah. I know. I've heard all sorts of things from people getting a shock, but it's better than the alternative. So,
Yep,
and I
that's
think
right.
they work on making those kinds of devices better and better for patients as well. What would you say in this whole journey, what surprised you the most?
Uh, well, really, what surprised me is that I didn't think, I thought I was going to be, okay, doing what they told me to do, and even though I didn't do it the way I should have done it, but now it's a different story. But I just should have paid attention more, and all that other, and noticing that. Yes, if you got indigestion and stuff like that, when you got a heart issue, maybe you should tell your doctor. Where a lot of times, before I had the transplant, I remember it was Thanksgiving and I got real sick on Thanksgiving right after eating. And my wife goes, "Oh, you should call your cardiologist." And I say, "Why?" It's like, what does this got to do with my heart? I didn't know. Now I know. And when I told him, he goes, "Well, why didn't you call me?" I said, "Because I didn't know that this, the two went together. But now I know basically anything that goes on can, basically has something to go with your heart failure."
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be when you think you're headed in the right direction and doing so much better, it can be a big surprise to find out you have heart failure. I mean, that's kind of a scary diagnosis.
Yeah.
So with that, with the surprises, when you have someone that is entering this journey, what do you wish they knew? What would you say? What are some of the myths about heart failure that you would like them to know are false, or what would you like them to know?
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to think of the myths, but well, like I said, with me is basically just listen to your doctor, do what they tell you to do. And also I found out in the beginning, I had one cardiologist I met, he was, yeah, okay, you had this, and he didn't really, okay, just exercise. And I says, "Well, can I, lift weights and stuff?" "Oh yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out." Meanwhile, I found out that no, I shouldn't, because I was, going crazy with weightlifting and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I was hurting myself. So I says, "Time to get another one." So that's the thing. Don't be afraid. If you don't like what your doctor's doing, don't be afraid to get another one. Ask around, because that's what happened to me. Because one day I was like, I think I got shocked 4 times in one day, and they had me on round the clock IV stuff to keep my heart straight. And all the nurses where I was in my local hospital were telling me, "You need to go." I had my transplant in Virginia. Then you need to go to Nova. They know more. So I basically, when my doctor came in, I says, "Listen," I said, "you doing all you can. You kept me alive this long, but I need someone else to look at me, because I can't live getting shocked every day.
Yeah.
It's not for me."
Yeah.
He understood. I says, "Nothing against you. I appreciate all your work for me and everything you've done for me." And one next thing I know is 3 o'clock in the morning, they shipped me off to the other hospital.
Yeah.
And that's where they, evaluated me and started working on me and taking care of me.
Yes. And that really does show the power of advocacy, patient advocacy. You really do have to stick up for yourself. And doctors understand. And there are places that specialize in heart failure. There are heart failure clinics in a lot of places. And if you have heart failure, as you know, when you get sent to one of those, it can make a big difference in your care.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing, which I've spoken to a lot of people with heart failure, they never knew about Mended Hearts. They never heard of it. They go, "What's that thing?" I was lucky that, my hospital in Virginia, in Nova, that there was Mended Hearts was able to walk around. It was all before COVID. They were able to come in and see people, and then I was surprised to see them. And then when I got to speak to them and stuff, and it's like, wow. I said, "Didn't know that." And then I found out. I said, "You guys got anybody that had a heart transplant?" And they said, "Yes, we do." I said, "Great. Can I speak to them?" And they kind of helped me, because like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, because you talk to the doctor, to him, it's like, it's like a mechanic. "Yeah, you just do this. When I come in, the heart's gone. We put the new one in. I sew it up. You put the blood, we start the thing, we look at it, it starts, great. If it don't, I give it a shock. He goes, everything's fine. They sew you up and then, you go back to your room. But
Yeah.
to find out all the things, because I didn't know what happened before, what happens after, what kind of pain I was in. But it's
Right.
nice to have somebody who's been through it, knows what's going on. It kind of helps you.
Yeah. Well, you have a person who visits on here for Mended Hearts asking how to support patients who have heart failure, what they can say, what they can do to support those patients. What would you suggest?
Well, basically, what I tell people is, to just do what the doctor tells you to do. Follow, taking medications. I said, if they tell you to exercise, exercise, eat right. I can't stress that. Keep away from salt. Just keep away from alcohol and all that other. Just take care of yourself. That's the whole thing. Just take care of yourself. And again, if you don't like what your doctor's telling you, because I've spoken to a lot of people that they don't seem to care. I said, get another doctor. But I don't know what anywhere. I said, there's got to be other doctors around. I said, even if you have to travel, because I was like, my doctor in Virginia was an hour away from me, from my house. My one in over here where I live now in Florida, they're an hour away from me. I travel. I do, because they're specialized in heart transplants.
Right.
So that's the thing. Just follow the thing, because I do speak to people that oh, I can go back to quadruple bypass, and I said, well, you got to eat. Well, I can't eat like I used to. I said, because you're gonna end up back here again. I says, do you want to go through all this again? Well, I could be fine. I took this many years to mess it up. I says, yeah, I thought that way too. I says, but I want to keep it as healthy as I can. That's what I try to do. I try to help. That's all you can do is just, stick to what the doctors tell you, take your medications. And if you don't like your doctor, find another one.
Yeah, absolutely. You have Jeffrey in the questions is giving you kudos for educating yourself. And he says, can't stress enough, moderate exercise and biking has been part of my life and saved me in the past and will keep me going. So he's giving you kudos on your biking as well. We have Laura Kinley is asking, how do we find a heart failure clinic? She's in the San Francisco Bay Area, but do you have suggestions on finding a heart failure clinic?
Well, I was lucky enough where the hospital, my local hospital, the doctors there, they were pretty good. And then, like I said, basically the nurses were the ones that turned me on to this other hospital, because I had no clue about it. I never knew, I just stuck to my local guys. But I guess go online, research, and find, because I was lucky enough where every nurse I ran into, you need to go here, you need to go here, you need to go there. These guys are good, but you need to go there. And that's how I ended up going to that hospital.
Yes, and asking your healthcare team is one of the best ways. So a cardiologist say, hey, I would really like to go to a heart failure clinic, and is there a good one near me? And then get recommendations. I think that's one of the things you can do. My guess is there is one out in the Bay Area, and you can always look online. But if you have a cardiologist you trust, ask, where's a heart failure clinic near me? Because a lot of hospitals have heart failure clinics, and there are a lot of different places where there are heart failure clinics. Someone is asking if you had any idea what your ejection fraction has been. Do people talk about, let's talk about what ejection fraction is too first, because I think some people won't know. But are you aware of your ejection fraction, and have you been?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I in the beginning, when it started, I was like 30 something. And I was like, okay. And then they explained what it meant, that, all you have, I thought it was 30% of my heart was bad. I didn't know that it was 30% was the only part that was working. It was the other way around. that the rest of it was bad. I thought, oh, okay. And then later on, doing what they told me to do and stuff, it went up a little bit. I said, oh, maybe I'm getting better, and then the doctor used to look at me, well, we'll see the next one. And then when it got to the point where my legs were like twice the size, and I went to see my doctor, and he looked at me and he goes, well, how do you get this bad? I says, I've been telling you that, my legs are swollen and you give me water pills and they're not getting any better. So we did he wanted to do an emergency, go in and look at, get my pressure. But my insurance company at the time wouldn't do it. So I went back 2 days later. And I was late and he looks at me, he goes, how are you walking? I says, why? What do you mean? He goes, you know what your ejection factor is? I says, what? He goes, 13.
Oh my
I
gosh.
says, what? And he says, holy crap. And I'm like looking at him, he goes, you're not going nowhere. He says, you're staying. I said, okay. Because he looked at me, he goes, how are you walking? I says, I don't know. I said, I just, doing what I had to do, and that's it. But yeah, the lowest I was 13.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, it's very confusing to understand ejection fraction. It is basically how well your heart is pumping. So
Right.
your heart doesn't fill up 100% ever and pump 100% of the blood out of it. And so a good ejection fraction is between 60, 70% in a normal person. So when you're 30, that's getting pretty low. 13 is it is a miracle you were even
Yeah.
upright with 13. And there are some people who get heart failure. It's called HFpEF, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And they are in heart failure, even though their ejection fraction is not low. So you need to be aware of your ejection fraction, but you need to also be aware that you could have a normal ejection fraction and still be in heart failure. So that's very important. So one of the questions is, what kinds of things do you eat? What does your diet consist of?
Basically, I just keep away from anything with salt in it, because when I was in the hospital, basically before I had my transplant, they give you this big book, which I got sitting around here somewhere. And I'm looking at all the do's and don'ts, and like, okay, well, they tell you like buffets? I says, yeah. He goes, well, guess what? You're not going to them no more. I says, why? He says, oh, the bacteria, you can't anything near bacteria. Any food that sits out, you can't have this, you can't have that. So I says, okay. So I looked at, while I was there, Googling what my favorite foods were. How much salt is in them? And I was like, 2,000 milligrams, 5,000 milligrams. And I'm allowed like maybe 10% of my, I think it comes out to like 200 milligrams a serving. And I'm like, holy crap. I said, but that's my thing. In the morning, I try to eat. I have either oatmeal with some kind of fruit in it, cereal. I drink soy milk because it has the least amount of salt and sugar in it than regular milk, almond milk, and all that other stuff. Sometimes I have cereal. Sometimes I have like Cheerios. I just try to keep it light. And lunch, I kind of skip lunch most of the time, even though they tell me you should eat. I said, I just don't feel like it, but dinner, it could be anything. I can make, whatever it is, I'll eat normal. I just watch the salt, watch the sugar, and just whatever it is, I don't eat a lot of it. I'll just eat like half of it. Same thing if we go out someplace to a restaurant. If I order something, I'll eat half. Take the other half home and eat it another day. I try to keep with salads and eating vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. So it's just basically cut your portions down. And before you know it, because my wife looks at me and goes, you eat like a bird. I said, well, she goes, you eat less than me. I said, that's what I got to do to keep myself healthy. So I do what I got to do.
Yeah. Well, Joe, you look great.
Yeah, a
And
little skinny, but I'm all right.
Well, someone asked about weightlifting, and if you lift too much weight, it puts the pressure in your heart. It's an isometric exercise, which puts the pressure in your heart, like raises the pressure in your heart.
Yeah.
So it's not any weightlifting, it's heavy weightlifting that's
Yeah.
really
I
dangerous.
usually do, when I'm at the gym, when I do go, it's maybe 60 pounds when I'm using my, arms and stuff to build up my chest and my arms. My legs are kind of strong from bike riding. So with that, anything I push on and stuff like that, I'm like 130 or 150 pounds on my legs. But chest wise, anything, because it's still kind of, even 3 years later, I still feel pulling and stuff from the staples or whatever heck they put in there.
Yeah.
I still feel the skin pulling across. And my doctor said, "Oh, that's because you're a skinny person." I says, "Oh, I never heard that sound. Nobody ever called me that before."
Well, we are glad that you've been here with us today. There's a question, but we don't have time to answer it. But I want to ask Joe, if someone has a question for you about visiting someone, they're talking about visiting someone who seems to really be giving up. Is it okay if we connect them with you?
Sure, I've
Okay,
spoken to
great.
lots of people.
All right. So if you do have info@mendedhearts.org is the email. Please do email us and we'll get you connected with Joe. If you have a couple questions you need to ask him. Joe, we really appreciate you being here today. You're just wonderful. And we so appreciate all you do to help us understand heart failure a little better and visiting as well.
That's what my promise to God was. I said, if you make me come out of this, I promise I'm going to help other people with this same thing that's going through this and try to help them. Some don't listen, some do, but I do the best I can.
Well, I'll tell you, it means the world to people. So we definitely appreciate you. And we have a couple appreciation comments in the chat box as well. So thank you so much, Joe. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
All right, take care.